A side, B side, what side are you on?
Welcome back to another episode of A Side, B Side Podcast. How's it going, Adam?
I'm doing well. How are you, Brooke?
Good. So, of course, last week we talked about the big move. And can I just say to anyone that has moved anywhere, especially like a lot, not like just in the city, which props to you, even if you just move across the city, but if you like move states away from what you're used to, props to you because it takes a lot.
Mm-hmm. It can be a mess.
It can be. So we finally, I think last week when we talked, we hadn't found a place yet. We found a place. We actually get to move in this weekend, which is exciting. I'm so excited because it's brand new. It's gorgeous. It's like this wide open floor plan. It's got barn doors for like the closets
but not an actual barn.
No. I think I did send you pictures when I found it because I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and then I got like full on stalker creepy and found the website of the and looked at the floor plans and everything. So it was really nice. Yeah.
It is really, really nice. So very excited. We're both very excited. We've been staying in a hotel.
Yeah, and I would say it's about time. You guys had one full weekend without moving. I mean, what slackers.
I know. What were we doing? What are we doing? But yeah, we're super excited. So I have not, since we were in the hotel, I did try to hook up my Fire Stick. And that was so funny because I was like, well, I can just download the remote on my phone and we can watch the Fire Stick. So I put the Fire Stick in the TV, and then the remote on the phone is like, please enter the 4-digit code on the Fire Stick. And I'm like, I can't access the Fire Stick without the remote. And so it was just this vicious cycle of, okay, I'm not getting anywhere with this. So.
I'm already confused. I don't. Yeah. So the Fire Stick has like a little display thingy on it.
So I guess like once if I had been able to get it open to where you could see all the apps on the Fire Stick, like the 4-digit code would have popped up. But because I couldn't even open it to access that, I couldn't see the code to put it in, but I couldn't unlock it without the remote.
Right. And the remote is packed away.
The remote's packed away. So the remote on my phone, it's telling me I need this 4-digit code, but I can't access the code without the remote, which is on my phone. Yeah. So
you're just trapped in a time loop of frustration.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there was that. So
what you're saying is you haven't watched a lot.
No, it's been pretty much on Nickelodeon because Nickelodeon has Friends at night. So.
Oh, okay.
Because you know me and my friends.
It's a little disturbing to make that realization when I remember that Nickelodeon used to have Nick at Night that played like black and white TV shows when I was a kid. I was like, man, these are so old. And now it's playing Friends in the evening.
Yeah.
Which means, man, I am so old.
But have you seen anything good? What movies came out this week, by the way?
So what I don't even know what came out this weekend. I did not go to the movie theater. I've been catching up on stuff at home. I have plans this Sunday to go to the new Venom 2 with Carnage. I believe that comes out this weekend.
Yes.
I've already bought tickets for opening night of the next Bond movie, which is finally coming out after like 2.5 years of waiting and like getting bumped and pushed back and coronavirus. So that's coming out next week. So I got that next Thursday. But mostly at home, I've just been watching. I got caught up on What If, with the exception of today's episode, which I usually watch after the podcast recording. And the fall season has started, so my NCIS, and there's the new NCIS Hawaii, which I was like, did we need that? I guess, because we don't.
Isn't
have
that NCIS. What Hawaii 5-0 was?
Right, I thought kind of, and then also Magnum PI, but I guess we got another one in Hawaii. It's funny. Hawaii doesn't want a lot of people visiting right now, and meanwhile, there's like 3 shows about Hawaii on TV talking about how great it is. So, sorry about that, Hawaii. So I got caught up on NCIS. I watched the new Visions, which is the Star Wars Visions shorts on Disney Plus. There are 9 short movies that have been developed with anime filmmakers in Japan, and they are incredibly well done. The first one is called The Duel, and they're all like 15 to 20 minutes long, so super bite-sized. They don't happen in canon, so it's just basically, it's kind of like another what if version. Like, what if we allowed these, creators who have an anime background and their style to just tell stories that exist within a fictional, Star Wars universe, and it is incredibly well done. The first one the very first one, you get the first episode, the 18 minute one, is called The Duel, and I haven't been that excited about anything Star Wars related since the first season of Mandalorian. It was so well done, and I found myself sitting there like, I wish this was canon. I want to know more about everything that's happening here and these characters and more of this story. I want to watch an entire season about this, these people, this story, and it's only like 15 minutes long. So it's kind of it's the beauty of one of those short films, is that sometimes it can be so engrossing and engaging and draw you in. I mean, Pixar has done a great job of kind of putting short films back into the mainstream by including them with their movies as the Pixar shorts at the beginning, and making people pay a little bit more attention to the style of film that short films are. So hopefully this will also be something that comes out of this Star Wars Visions, because it's incredibly well done. There's a little bit of everything in different styles. If you've watched any anime over the last 50 years, there's going to be something that resonates with you, but it's still very much a Star Wars themes and characters and settings, but with a very anime twist to it, and it's just incredibly well done. So that has been something I've been binging. And then I also finally downloaded, because it's a running theme that Adam doesn't know what streaming subscriptions he has, or what he's subscribing to, or what he's paying for at any given time.
Right.
I decided to try to figure that out a little bit, because HBO Max, which I had been subscribed to as part of my Hulu subscription, which meant that I kind of had access to it, but it was hidden within the Hulu app, or it was hidden within the Amazon Prime app. I can't even tell you which one it was, because I could never find it, but I would randomly figure out that I'd been watching it when I was in one of the other apps, but I didn't know I was watching it. So it was like a stealth app. It lost its contract with either Amazon Prime or Hulu. I can't figure out which one I was subscribed. I think it was Hulu, but I'm not entirely positive. And so I couldn't watch any more of these movies that I'd been watching, that I just realized I'd been watching on HBO through this other service. So I finally decided to just download the HBO Max app again and subscribe to that. And so I've been trying to catch up on all this stuff that I had access to, but I didn't realize I had access to. And of course, I've got the 3 TVs in my living room. It's a studio apartment, so it's also my kitchen, also my bedroom, in the main room. And one of them is always playing a movie, while the other 2 maybe on shows or sports or something. And so I've been rewatching movies, and that actually led me to finally finish my topic for the A-side this week, which I had focused on a couple weeks ago, but then kind of set to the side, and then finally got to finish this week. So I was really excited about that. But there's some really good stuff on HBO Max. And the whole, they're partnered with, I think it's Warner Brothers. So like all the new movies that are in theaters are also coming out. So like I finally got to watch the new Mortal Kombat that I missed in the theaters, which was really good. And
Mortal Kombat.
I never got to see the News of the World, the one with Tom Hanks, the Western that came out at some point during COVID. I'm not sure if that was last summer or if it was this summer. I think it was last summer. But
I'm trying to remember that myself.
Yeah, it's the one where he's trying to get the little girl back to her family, and like there's all sorts of bad guys coming to get him. Yeah, I think it came out last fall, like right when theaters reopened, because it was considered to be like potential award-winning stuff. But that's another one. So I've been kind of plowing through that as I've been. Now I have access to it, which is pretty great.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I don't really have anything else to add in the very beginning. like haven't read any books. I haven't listened to my podcast this week. So
I mean, you've been learning an entirely new, city, state, job, house, moving. So I mean, I feel like your absorption of information has definitely, you've been absorbing a lot of stuff already.
I will say it is bigger here than, like, I knew it was bigger than where we were coming from, but it's even, I think, bigger than I had anticipated.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big town.
Yeah.
Can we say the towns?
Yeah. I think we said already.
Okay. I don't know. You said the place I was coming from, so I was like,
yeah.
Are we being secrettive about places?
No. Well, everybody, of course, knew.
I live in a state that ends in Ota. That'll narrow it down.
Going from Bowling Green, Kentucky to Lincoln, Nebraska has been quite different. And it's really funny because everybody's like, from Kentucky. And it was funny because when I was coming here, everybody's like, Nebraska.
I mean, one like universal thing about the US, and I mean, you've lived all over. Being from Buffalo and then living in Kentucky, and I've gotten the chance to live in a few places, but even when you like visit other places, it seems like universally in the US, where you're from has a dim view of someplace else.
Yes.
Like no matter, like, it's like, oh, well, we're here, but then like, we're not that, or we like make assumptions about over there. And then like you go over there, then making assumptions about somewhere else. And it's like, man, we've all got that like one place where we're like, at least we're not that.
Right. Well, and apparently, I guess here, the big, because there's like the Kentucky, Tennessee kind of rivalry or whatever, but here the rivalry is with Iowa.
Oh, okay. I was gonna assume Kansas, but
no, maybe it's Minnesota, Kansas.
Yeah. No, Minnesota, Wisconsin. That's a big thing, at least the Minnesotans. And then Wisconsin has like Minnesota, Wisconsin, but they've also got like Wisconsin, UP, and then they've got Wisconsin, Illinois, and like Chicago, Milwaukee, and like they've got more stuff. And Minnesota's like, hey, you're our number one rival. Wisconsin's like, we got a lot of rivals.
So are they what? Okay, so you said it's Minnesotans. So what are people from Wisconsin? Wisconsinans then?
I think Wisconsinites.
Wisconsinites. Okay, because I know it's Lincolnite and Nebraskan. I did learn that.
Yeah, well, I knew it was Nebraska. Now you have me questioning. I think it's Wisconsinite.
I mean, I'm sure you're correct. I'm sure you're correct. I was just like I said, when I first got here, I didn't know if it was like Lincolnonian or Lincolner or Lincolnite. It's Lincolnite. So, Lincolnite, yeah.
Lincolnite.
And the people of Lincoln have been wonderful to me at my new position. Very welcoming. Of course, I kept hearing about this thing called Nebraska Nice before I got here, and it is true. Everybody's been really nice.
Which is a weird thing because Minnesota claims they have Minnesota Nice. So now I'm like really thrown off.
But I think that's where it came from. That's what I've been told, that it was someone like on the Nebraska Travel Council or something. They basically took Minnesota Nice and made it Nebraska Nice.
Okay, cool. I'm fine with that. Like, imitation is the biggest sense of flattery, but I was very conflicted because I was like, did Minnesota steal it? Does everybody have that? Is there Iowa Nice? Is there South Dakota Nice? Is it just an upper Midwest thing? Because when you kept saying that, my brain was like, what? I'm familiar with that term, but not with those words.
All right. So there you go. New job, new place, new everything right now, learning so much new stuff. So that's where I've been. And you are without services that you probably need to be without. So,
Well, and I now officially am subscribed to HBO Max. So Brooke's entire life changed. Adam figured out some billing issues.
all right, you ready to jump into it this week?
Let's jump into it.
Okay, so this story, I know I say this all the time. I'm like, this story is so wild. This story is so crazy. But like, legitimately, this is a story that I cannot believe has not been more talked about.
Really?
Because it's, I mean, it literally, it does have, well, I guess not a lot of, yeah, it does have sex, drugs, murder. I mean, it's got it all. And the ending is totally movie worthy.
Really?
Yeah. Well, not in a great way, because don't forget, this is a true crime podcast.
Yeah, it's probably not gonna end. It's not gonna be a happy ending.
No, I mean, it is famous in certain parts of the world, but I can't believe that here in America we have not heard more about this, because it did happen in the States. I have to give a shout out to my youngest, because she actually sent me this story. And once I like got a hold of it, I could not let it go. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what I had planned, but it's not going to be anything but this story.
Oh, there you go.
All right. So this is the story of Chalino Sanchez. So Chalino was born in El Guayabo in the ranchito of Las Flechas in Sinaloa, Mexico in August of 1960. Chalino was the youngest of 7 boys and 1 girl. His parents were Santo Sanchez and Signorina Felix. Chalino grew up pretty poor and had a pretty rough childhood. His sister Juana called him a curious, mysterious dreamer. His dream was actually to become a singer.
Oh.
So Chalino was actually born Rosalino, and he was also known as Marcelino, but he actually changed his name to Chalino. Some other nicknames were Pelavacas, which means cow skinner, El Indio, which is the Indian, and Campa Chalino, which is like dude or buddy.
That first one was the cow skinner?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
grew up on a ranch.
Okay. I was like, is this a foreshadowing? Or?
No, he grew up on a ranch. So
grew up on a ranch. Okay.
But Campa Chalino was mostly what his friends called him. He was really quiet, and he was often described as shy, but he had a reputation for being a Valiente, which is like a tough but valiant guy.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
Yeah.
So
Prince Valiant.
So we're going to skip forward a few years. In 1975, when he was about 15 years old, his sister Juana was raped by a local bully, Chapo Shorty Perez. Shorty was this rich and powerful and dangerous dude. You know, like everybody in the town feared him. Like I said, local bully. Mm-hmm. Well, this happens to his sister. And of course, that's something that deeply impacts everybody, but especially Chalino. That's his, you know, he's the baby. That's who he looks up to.
Probably so about some feelings of I should have protected her.
Right. Yeah. So about 2 years later, in 1977, 17-year-old Chalino saw Shorty at a celebration for the Mexican Revolution. And, well, Shorty got shot. Allegedly, make sure we use that. Shorty was shot by Chalino in revenge for his sister. And, well, he died.
Oh, dang. So he didn't just get shot. He got shot dead.
He got shot dead. After this, Chalino was pretty much forced to leave Sinaloa, and he went to Tijuana. And he took with him his gun and his Jesus Malverde chain. Well, while in Tijuana, he worked as a coyote, which if you don't know what that is, that's someone who helps smuggle immigrants across the border. So he was helping to bring immigrants into the United States. Later that year, Chalino himself crossed into the United States as an undocumented worker. Those are known as braceros or campesinos. So he started working in fields in Oregon before moving west and working fields in California. Eventually, he moves to Los Angeles with his tia, his aunt, in Inglewood. So while in Inglewood, he had some various jobs. Like he washed dishes, he sold cars. He even for a time became a small-time drug dealer selling small quantities of marijuana and cocaine. Chalino was also a driver for a restaurant called Bell Gardens. While he's doing all these jobs, these odd jobs, he's also helping his brother Armando as a coyote again.
Wow.
He was busy.
Yeah, covering a lot of bases there.
Yeah. So Chalino met Marisela Viejos through a cousin, Rosalba, in 1984. The two had a small, intimate wedding, and Marisela was expecting their son Edan when the two married. Edan later becomes Edan Chalino Sanchez in honor of his father, who was also a singer. Unfortunately, Edan passes away at the age of 19 due to a car wreck. The couple also had a second child, Cynthia. In 1984, Chalino's brother Armando was shot and killed in a hotel in Tijuana, which inspired Chalino's first corrido. I'll get to that in a second. His boss at Bell Garden restaurant, Rigo Campos, was murdered by drug dealing rivals. His death also inspired a corrido. Around the same time, Chalino was arrested and sent to La Mesa prison for 8 months with his cousin Ismael. So it was there he began to compose these corridos or songs for his fellow inmates and anyone that had a story to tell. Okay, so a quick side note about corridos. They date back to the mid-1800s, and they're songs that were used as a way to learn of people's escapades, both good and bad. Their tales were told without the need of newspapers, television, or radio, because you got to think mid-1800s.
Mm-hmm.
Corridos often told the stories of heroes, bandits, and corrupt police. They were sung to the music of polkas and waltzes by mariachis. Chalino actually changes the corrido game. He sings corrido, prohibido corridos or prohibited corridos or narco corridos, which are the equivalent, which is like drug songs, and that becomes the equivalent to gangster rap.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So Chalino is in prison and he is composing these corridos for his fellow inmates, and he's getting paid, but he's also getting gifts from these patrons. Things like guns were a popular gift.
Oh, you know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
I mean, what do you get a guy who sings about murder
right.
weapons? I mean, obviously, it's not like he's got them.
All of his patrons, or several of his patrons, suggest that he should record these songs when he gets out. So there was a small group of people called the Las Cuatro de la Frontera, and they suggested that, you know, like I said, Chalino should record his corridos. So once Chalino gets out of prison, he goes to a recording studio on Olympic Boulevard in Los Angeles. The studio that Chalino went to was called Sun Angel Records and was owned by a guy named Angel Mariscal. Originally, when Chalino went to the studio, he wasn't there to record his songs. He was actually going to give them to another artist to record, but that artist canceled. So he ended up recording his own songs. Chalino, in the very beginning, was widely panned by critics for his voice. That's why he was actually giving those songs to another artist. But, you know, I guess Chalino made a name for himself because in 89...
Sometimes it's better to have like the person who wrote the song sing, because you get a different understanding. So
and the vibe, the whole feeling of it.
And not everybody's voice is perfect. I mean, I come from Minnesota. We have a very famous musician who got from Minnesota, Bob Dylan, who was also not known for his, dulcet, classic voice.
There you go. Because a lot of people will say, there's a ton of Bob fans, but then there's some people that are like, he just mumbles.
Yeah. I mean, it's not everybody's favorite, but that's the thing. It's not everybody's the same. So like, I'm not a huge Drake guy, but some people love it.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in 1989, Chalino recorded his first cassette of 15 songs. He sold these cassettes out of the trunk of his car because, like I said, critics panned his voice and they weren't considered good enough for commercial mainstream radio.
Mhm.
Well, while selling his cassettes, he worked and stocked local swap meets, bakeries, and other businesses across South Central Los Angeles. He made contact with a man named Pedro Riviera, who happened to be another Mexican immigrant who had set up a small recording studio in Long Beach. Shout out to Snoop. Yeah, Snoop's from Long Beach. So the studio was called Cintas Acuario. It was ideal for aspiring musicians because it allowed for them to record for really cheap. So together, Chalino and Pedro pioneered, like I said, the corrido prohibido, also known as narco corrido. This genre idealized drug smugglers, murderers, and or valientes. So promoters across the Southland quickly became infatuated with Chalino, like booking him at every opportunity. So Chalino sang using Sinaloan slang and his own personal cadence, which added to this new corrido style. This was something that like no bigger singer had ever attempted, which I guess was perfect for him because, I mean, what did he have to lose?
Yeah.
You
Made it his own.
you figure a singer who was like already a big name, they're like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. But he's like, what I got to lose?
Yeah. Go for it.
So in 1991, Chalino performed his very first legit show at Abel Orozco's club called the El Portal. It was a nightclub in Southgate, California. Chalino didn't dress like a traditional mariachi. When he went on stage, he wore black jeans, a white cowboy hat, a fancy stitched belt with a large buckle, exotic cowboy boots, gold chains, watches, and a loaded pistol tucked into his waistband.
Not messing around. Committed to the bit.
Oh, his style was a Valiente from a Mexican rancho. He was a certified hit. The doors of the club at this event had to be closed because so many people kept trying to get in.
Wow.
His appearances continued to draw massive crowds, and for his performances, he was paid $10,000 to $15,000 each weekend, which today would be about $20,000 to $30,000 a weekend. I mean, that's pretty baller status.
Yeah, it's not bad for a weekend's work.
No, not at all. So on January 25th of 1992, Chalino was hired to sing at Los Arcos nightclub in Coachella, which of course we all have heard of Coachella.
Mm-hmm.
During his performance to a packed crowd, a local unemployed mechanic named Eduardo Gallegos, who was 34 at the time, he jumped on the stage and began firing a small 25 caliber pistol at Chalino, who in turn reaches in his waistband and pulls out his 10 millimeter pistol and begins a running gun battle chase of Gallegos.
Jeez.
400 people were in attendance at this show. 7 were hit in the gun battle, including Chalino and one of his group accordionists, Ignacio Nacho Hernandez.
7 people were hit between 2 guys. I mean, that is a high percentage of hits.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It doesn't say what kind of guns, but just assume like 6 to 8 shots, maybe 10. Still, that's a lot of. You hit a lot of people with those things.
That is a lot.
Yeah, these are not stormtrooper shooting.
That's a lot. 20-year-old Claudio Rene Carranza was killed in the gun battle, unfortunately. A bystander wrestled and killed Gallegos with his own gun, shooting him in the mouth.
Oof.
That bystander was eventually caught, convicted, and sentenced to 15 years to life in prison.
Dang.
Chalino, who, like I said, had been shot, was taken to Desert Hospital in critical condition, and he had to undergo surgery. He did survive, and he did recover. The shooting made ABC News Tonight and both U.S. and Spanish-speaking newspapers. So this event had like a huge positive impact on Chalino's career and success. His sales increased and he started getting radio airplay. The song that was getting airplay, though, was not a narco corrido. It was a simple old-fashioned song called Nieves de Enero, which is the snows of January, or, we might just call it January snow. It just sounds so much better, Nieves de Enero. So at his next appearance in Los Angeles at El Parral, the doors were cut off at 6:00. This is 5 to 6 hours before he was even set to take the stage.
Jeez.
So, I mean, that shooting was huge for him.
Mm-hmm. Gave him a lot of cachet and notoriety.
A lot of street cred, So 4 months after Coachella, on May 15th of 1992, Chalino returned to Mexico to perform in Sinaloa at the Salon Bugambilias. It was the people of Sinaloa that wanted him to return. That was like their hometown hero. It's been rumored, though, that he'd been warned not to return to Sinaloa.
Right.
For this performance, he was offered $20,000. The venue filled to capacity, over 2,000 people in attendance. So this is where things take a turn. The widely held rumor is that while on stage, Chalino was handed a death threat note telling him he would die after he was done performing. It's never been proven, but there is a video. And if you watch this video, you do see Chalino reading a note. He's visibly shaken. He's sweating. When I say he's sweating and he wipes sweat. He kind of zones out for a second. And then he gives the performance of a lifetime, like one of his best performances. I mean, can you imagine somebody hands you that and then you just shake it off and give one of the best performances of your life?
I can imagine it. I don't know if I could do it.
Right.
But I mean, maybe in that moment you're like freed from like all what if. You're like, hey, this is it. I'm just going to do everything I wanted to do. I'm going to do it. I'm going to let go. Just play.
Yeah. So it was after this performance, after midnight, Chalino drove away from the club with 2 of his brothers, Esperidion and Francisco, a cousin, Carmelo Felix, and several young women. On their drive, they're pulled over by what appeared to be 2 police vehicles, 2 Chevy Suburbans. Several armed men surround Chalino's vehicle. They show police ID and badges. The police tell Chalino that their commandant wants to see him. Chalino agrees, but pleads with the armed officers, these men, not to take anybody else from the vehicle. He enters one vehicle. It takes off with the other following closely behind. At 6 a.m. on May 16th of 1992, just a few hours later, 2 farmers find Chalino's body in an irrigation canal near Highway 15, near the neighborhood of Los Laurales in Mexico. Chalino was blindfolded. His wrists had rope marks, and he'd been shot twice in the back of the head. No motive has ever been revealed, nor have any suspects. His death made him a folk hero. His fame and recordings have grown in popularity. He still gets millions of streams nearly 3 decades after his death and remains popular with young Hispanic listeners. Since his death, more than 150 corridos have been written and sung about him. In 2019, Michael T. Flores directed Chalino, a 15-minute short inspired by the life, music, and murder of Celino Sanchez. And that is the story of Rosalino Chalino Sanchez.
Yeah, there's like, how has that not been a movie or a series? Or
that's what I'm saying to you. How?
Wow.
That story is incredible.
Yeah. And like, it's all real. So
yes.
You don't even have to like there isn't like, oh, well, this is, contrived for the TV. I mean, you could just use the actual facts.
I mean, it's, and when you watch the video, of course, I'm going to post that on our website, but when you watch the video and just watch him reading this piece of paper, like I said, it's never been proven, but that is the widely held theory that it was a death threat. And I mean, you watch the video and you see him read this, and he is very visibly upset and shaken by this, but he shakes it off and goes on.
Well,
And
yeah, and to
then
have when they pull him over, to have the wherewithal to, like, convince them just to take me, because all
that's
those people
exactly
could
what
have
I
been
was going to
considered
say. That's what I was going to
witnesses.
say.
It's like, oof.
To just be like, hey, just take me, knowing full well what was about to happen. He had to have to say, hey, don't take anybody, just take me. He knew full well what was about to happen.
Yeah. Yikes.
But there you go. Like I said, when my daughter sent me that, I was like, oh yeah, this is it. Oh my goodness, I have to talk about this one. It's whoa.
Yeah, like you said, it feels like it should be more well known than it is.
Yeah, I just wow. And then to have it's almost like the whole, like the Bruce Lee, like the dad and the son, like not curse, but how everybody talks about the Lee family curse.
Yeah.
It's almost like the Sanchez family, because to have his son die in such a tragic way, like to get into a car accident and like his car flips and he dies. I mean, it's just like, whew.
And that wasn't too much longer after his death, right?
No.
Oof.
Yeah. There are pictures all over the internet. Chalino met quite a few artists. Like there's one where he's seen hanging out with like Tupac.
Mm-hmm.
So again, for him to have come in contact with so many people and to be so well known and to not have a more famous story just blows my mind.
Well, and sure that part of it's the language barrier for some people. He didn't have like a crossover hit or anything that was accessible to the English speaking population in the same way, but it doesn't change the story at all. I mean, it really feels like this. Yeah, if somebody hasn't, there's got to be dozens of scripts that have been attempted to tell this story, because it just, why would you not? It's an amazing story.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So again, thanks to my daughter for sending me that one. She said, I saw it. She said, I saw it and I knew you'd want to do it.
Yeah, if we can get two versions of A Star Is Born, we can get one good movie about Chalino Sanchez.
Heck yeah. But there you go. That's the B-side this week.
And it is now time for the A-side. And as I mentioned this week, I finally got to finish my research and put together this A-side that I've been working on for a couple of weeks. I think I had mentioned, I don't know, maybe 2, 3, 4 episodes ago, that when I was out at the record store one day, I picked up a bunch of records, but one that I was really interested because it was a record of old radio shows. And it was 3 episodes of a show that I had always been interested in finding, because it was a movie that I really enjoyed in the 1990s. But of course, it started out as a radio show, and I'd never heard any of the radio show. So I found this record, and I started listening to the radio show. And for me, Brooke, we met through radio, and radio has been something that has been a big part of both of our lives. And for me, as a little kid, radio was listening on the way to school in the car. We had a morning show on WCCO. It was Boone and Erickson. They had been around forever. They were sort of the classic morning duo on a news talk radio, getting you ready for the day and having, that connection. Lots of, guests in sports and talk and things like that. But then in the afternoon was what I thought was another group show called, it was hosted by Steve Cannon, called The Cannon Mess. And it had all these different characters, or turns out they were characters, but at the time I thought they were live people. He was doing all the different voices himself. There were like 4 or 5 different ones. And so the theater of the mind that radio is, once I learned that, I don't think I learned that until, I was in college before I realized it. And I was working in radio myself. the idea of the theater of the mind and being able to create things just with sound has always super appealed to me. So I wanted to get into these old radio shows. And so when I found the record, I was like, okay, perfect. I'm going to listen to this and we'll see how it goes. And it was original broadcast recordings from the 1930s of a show called The Shadow. Now, The Shadow was
The Shadow knows.
Yes,
Sorry.
And it has arguably one of the greatest catch lines ever. It's, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows. And you're like, oh, ooh, that's cool. I would have. How does he do that? And it was out way before even like Batman became a thing in comics. And it was a sort of early on 1930s, 1940s crime caper, superhero, detective, crime fighter, superhero, vigilante guy. And it was always, the classic radio play where you've got the voices and the sound effects, but you're really being, it's all exposition that's helping you create the scene. And it was, interesting to hear it from that level. But then it made me think, okay, this is a little bit different from the movie that I remember. And in the early 90s, there were all of these superhero films spawned pretty much from the extreme success of 1989's Batman. If we don't have Tim Burton and Michael Keaton do Batman in 1989, there is no MCU. We do not have the, any of the current movies we have now without the immense success. And it's kind of crazy to think how big a success Batman was in 1989. When it finished, it was the 5th highest grossing film of all time.
Wow.
In 1989. Like, now since then we've had, so many more movies and like, Titanics and your Avatars and all the Harry Potters, and like it's moved way down the list. But to be in the top 5 grossing movies of all time when it was done, it was huge. So then everyone was like, you know what? Maybe there's something to this superhero thing. We should give it a try. And, we had, reignited Spider-Man series came out later. But one of the first ones that came out in 1994 was almost a carbon copy of the themes that made Batman work. So you've got this rich, playboy, philanthropist, entrepreneurial guy who has a secret life and is fighting crime on the side and is good friends with the police, but they don't know who he is. And he's got the secret identity, and he's got these people that work for him that help him, know when things are happening around town, so he can hop in and be the superhero like savior. And it, even to the point where when I rewatched The Shadow just over, twice over the last week, getting ready for this, after I'd listened to the radio play saying, the radio play wasn't what I remember. And then I got to The Shadow, the movie, which is available on HBO Max, which ties into me actually figuring out my billing because I wanted to watch it because I could no longer watch it on Hulu like I had it before. So all ties together. Thank you, A-Side, B-Side, for helping out to figure out one of his many billing issues. And so as I'm watching it, the entire film reeks with the Batman essence. It's got the, Batman 1989. It's got, the soaring orchestral music. It's got, the sort of witty wordplay. The fight scenes are much like they kind of were in Batman, the first movie. There wasn't a ton of acrobatic fights going on. It was more about the characters and the lines and the setting. You've even got Penelope Ann Miller in The Shadow, who is playing a character that sure seems a lot like Kim Basinger in the original Batman. You've got a balding, like butler guy that's helping out the main character. And you've got a actor who was looking to make a mark as a action hero for really the first time. Well, I mean, it wasn't his first time, but he'd lost out on another franchise and was trying to create a new franchise. And of course, that was Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin famously was in Hunt for Red October, which is one of my favorite films, playing Jack Ryan, and then never got brought back for any of the Jack Ryan sequels. They eventually switched over to Harrison Ford for 2 movies. And then there was a late 90s Ben Affleck version before now we've got the John Krasinski version, which came after the Chris Pine version. So all of those actors have played Jack Ryan, but it originated with Alec Baldwin. And he felt like he lost out on this opportunity to have a big movie franchise that he could tie himself to. And The Shadow was an attempt to kind of recapture that. And it is, it tells the same story as the old radio play. You've got this playboy philanthropist who is actually a secret crime-fighting vigilante at night. It starts out very much, you could almost, from a story breakout point, have it very similar to the first Christopher Nolan Batman, as it goes all the way back to where his training started and where he came from and how he got to be this mystical sort of shadowy crime-fighting figure. But the one thing that I always liked about the mid 90s Shadow, kind of that wasn't as apparent in the radio plays, and I think is one of the reasons that it didn't really take off, was the gray area. Whereas Batman's gray area was never, he's a good guy, but he's always a hero. He's always been a good guy. He was brought into becoming a vigilante because of the actions of his parents, the actions that led to his parents' death. And so, sorry, spoiler alert, Batman's parents died.
Whoa. How could you tell me that?
I know. I'm sorry. Sorry, Martha. It happens. That was a very obscure stupid Batman versus Superman reference. Sorry. But for the Shadow, the one thing that the movie decided is if you've got this character who, as we said, the tagline is, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
Shadow knows.
But why does he know? And how does he know? Because he himself was an evil man at one point. And he goes from an evil man, turns into someone who avenges and takes down evil men. And he knows what lurks in their heart because it lies in his heart as well. And that was something that always kind of, as a 13-year-old, where I'm starting to, the world is not all black and white. It's not, binary. It's not one or the other. There's lots of shades of gray. It just seems so interesting to have this hero who he himself, was redeemed. He was a bad guy, and now he's avenging, on the part of the good guys. And for some reason, whether it was that it was too close in themes or even style, and even just from a visual standpoint, it's very much like the, Tim Burton 1989 Batman and even, 1992 Batman Returns. The Shadow opened big. It had a big opening weekend, and everyone's like, okay, perhaps this is going to be a blockbuster summer movie. And then it just fizzled out. It was made for over $40 million, and in the US alone, it only grossed $32 million. It's also interesting to look back at what $40 million could get you in 1994 versus what, movies are being made for hundreds of millions of dollars today. And the special effects aren't what they are today, but they're also not bad. So I feel like you got a lot more for your dollar in 1994 than you are in 2021. But it worldwide grossed only $40 million, had virtually no overseas box office, which, if you notice now, it's almost the biggest blockbusters are going to have the same amount of sales in the US as they do overseas, if not more overseas, over time, as the worldwide market has grown and grown and grown. But The Shadow completely bombed. It has a absolutely horrible rating on Rotten Tomatoes. The thermometer or tomato meter. The thermometer. Tomato meter on Rotten Tomatoes is at 35%. The audience score is at 44%. But the one thing, and maybe this is just I'm weird, as I rewatched it in the last week, it's still a very enjoyable movie. It has some great moments. It has some really fun performances. I mean, you've got Alec Baldwin doing his Alec Baldwin thing. He still feels a little stiff, but that's kind of always how he's always felt to me as an audience member. Penelope Ann Miller does her best with not being given a lot to do. Ian McKellen is completely wasted as Penelope Ann Miller's father, a scientist who's part of the gets kind of plays the Eric Selvig role, who gets mind controlled into helping build the nuclear weapon. And then you've got Tim Curry playing, just kind of hamming it up as a delightfully the only guy who doesn't have to be mind controlled to join the bad guy. He just joins of his own free will, which is, sort of a great Tim Curry role. He looks like he's having a lot of fun. It is well done. I mean, Peter Boyle plays one of Alec Baldwin's characters, the Shadow's sidekicks, or his, his Happy Hogan, if you will, if you think of Jon Favreau from the Iron Man movies. And it's a fun movie. And I had completely forgotten about one thing that stuck with me. And you've got the main bad guy, who is a descendant of Genghis Khan, played by John Lone, who is another one of those guys where I recognize from all these movies, but then he turns out he stopped acting 14 years ago in 2007, isn't acting anymore. So that's why we haven't seen him in a while. But he's a bad guy in a blockbuster superhero action movie who's got a secret lair, but the secret lair is hidden in such a unique way. Like, I've never had any other secret layer that I thought of be hidden this way. And then I realized that they used virtually the same trope in Ant-Man 2 for the secret base, and how it was kind of hidden in plain sight, but not hidden.
Right.
And so really well done to have the bad guy's secret lair be in the middle of Manhattan and have no one know about it. And it's not because it's hidden in the sewers like it's like Lex Luthor in the original Superman or anything like that. So there are a lot of really fun moments, and it is, in my opinion, eminently watchable. But more than anything else, I think the subject matter is ripe for an adaptation. To have the main power of the superhero being to be psychic, to know what is in your heart, to know what, be able to read your mind, be able to read your actions, and know what evil lurks within you. It feels like this is just waiting for a modern adaptation that has perhaps more of a horror feel to it, or at least has a darker, and I think audiences now would go to it a little bit more. We saw, Blumhouse, what they did with The Invisible Man, where they really ratcheted up the horror aspect of that one. I think if someone took the style of that and applied it to the Shadow, or played more with those darker elements. I mean, it's interesting that in the 1994 version, Alec Baldwin, when he becomes the Shadow, physically transforms a little bit. And when he transforms, he actually just ends up looking, as one reviewer said, more like his brother Stephen Baldwin, which is strange. But to have that opportunity to really play with it, I think you could do even more with the dark side of the Lamont Cranston versus the Shadow character. And I'm a little surprised. We're going on 26 years now. We've remade just about everything else with all of the source material that we have in the radio shows. And one of the links that we'll share on the website today is a link to a bunch of opportunities to download all of the original The Shadow radio plays if you're looking for them. I obviously had to go find it at a record store on accident, but there's a website that has a ton of download links if you want to listen to them, with all of that original source material and all of the magazines that the Smith and Street and Smith, which was the publishing company that put out magazines based off the Shadow, all of that source material. And this idea of a darker, like psychic, aspect that I think would be more understood and probably accepted by audiences today.
Mm-hmm.
I really am surprised that somebody hasn't tried to make another one. And maybe that just speaks to how badly the reputation of the Shadow is, or how badly infected the idea of the Shadow is from that 1994 film, and the horrible reviews, and the fact that everyone thought it was a box office bomb. So fingers crossed that we will be able to see the Shadow updated soon. But if you want to see the Shadow or listen to it, you can listen to it via the link on our website to all of these old radio MP3s. Or if you're like me and you subscribe to HBO Max, it is part of your subscription and it is available. Or you can find it on almost every other streaming services that you can rent for the classic $3.99. So this week's A-side is The Shadow. Check it out in radio, film, and hopefully someday somebody will reinvent it again.
Nice. The Shadow knows.
It's such a great tagline.
It just sticks with you.
It is. It's so good. And it's like, I think maybe it's because I watched it, at my prime falling in love with media time in life. But as I was rewatching it, I remember really enjoying this in the theater and thinking this was going to be a huge thing. And I have a red mask that I've worn. I bought, the Under Armour masks, the running ones, they're super comfortable, by the way. Highly recommend. But I bought a bunch of those because we could wear them at work, be on the patio. It's 95 degrees outside, but they were structured and I could still breathe and it was protective. But I've got a red one. And every time I put the red one on, because he wears the black hat and the black jacket thing, he's got a red scarf covering his mouth. Every time I put it on, my brain goes, who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows. And I'm like, not helpful when I'm your waiter because I don't know your order. But I do know if you have evil. But it's an iconic look, and I hope it comes back.
For your sake, I hope so too. Maybe you should just be that for Halloween.
I've actually already got my Halloween costume all set up.
Oh, do you want to give us a sneak peek of it, or do we have to wait?
I am doing a Halloween 5K, so I wanted something that would be I could wear and I could run in. So I have a orange jumpsuit and I have a mask that is the Hannibal Lecter mask that he wears at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
So I will be Hannibal Lecter on the run for our Halloween 5K here in Minnesota.
Nice.
I wanted to buy a mask because I was afraid that by that point we might be back to a mask mandate. So I was covered either way.
So if you had to pick, and not based on how widely panned the Shadow was, but if you had to pick the better of the superheroes between the Shadow and Batman.
Oh, well, I don't think you can. I'd still pick Batman. I think the Shadow I don't think there's a Batman without the success of the Shadow in the early 1930s and 40s. Mm-hmm. But I think the Batman takes all the things that were good about the Shadow and then improves on them. Whereas the Shadow just still to me feels like untapped opportunity.
Right.
So I will answer it this way. In terms of characters, I think Batman is a better character. But if you gave me $100 million tomorrow to make a movie, because of how many good Batman movies there have been made, I would probably rather make a Shadow movie because I think there's more potential, untapped potential there than there is in the Batman franchise.
Okay. Interesting. All right. So there you go. That's the A-side.
That is the A-side.
All right. So before we go, of course, we got to let you know we will have pictures. We will have links all on our website, which is
A-side, B-side podcast.square.site. And this week we got we got the video from
Chalino.
I always want to, I don't know why I want to add a syllable. I was like, I think it's because like Chicharito is a famous soccer player who I keeps trying to pop into my mind. I don't know why I keep trying to add syllables. But we've got the video of him when he was handed the note. Mm-hmm. There, we've got the MP3s of the old Shadow radio show, and there even a picture from my apartment of the actual vinyl that I found.
Yes.
So we're not just posting other people's pictures. It's got an original one on there too.
which is a pretty cool cover. I mean, it's very basic and simple, but it's cool at the same time.
Yeah, it's it's weird that it hasn't been. I guess that's just the power of a box office bomb. Nobody, it's like poisonous. Nobody wants to touch it. We'll remake The Mask 7 times.
But I guess it's kind of like if you think about it, like the Green Lantern, when once Ryan Reynolds did that one, and it was such a like, it was just so bad.
Yeah,
it's never been,
and it's still a joke.
Yeah,
you know, like people still. But we had a David Hasselhoff Nick Fury movie in the mid '80s or late '80s, so we came back from that. So if you get a good enough writer, you could write a show and people will forget about stuff.
That's true. We just got to find them.
Yeah, just give me $100 million. I'll take care of it.
All right, we'll start a GoFundMe.
Yeah.
I mean, it might take us a while to get there, but
be my 6th generation ancestor who'll be like, okay, why did we start this for GoFundMe?
Right.
What is a movie?
I'm supposed to make a what about a who?
We really should have shut this thing down hundreds of years ago.
All right. Again, check out our website, asidebsidepodcast.square.site. Also social medias. We've got Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. We have that as well. If you have a story for us, whether it's some type of a media or if you have a true crime story for us, send it our way. Like my daughter did this week, and she was like, this is perfect for you. You're going to love it because I'm going to love it. So send it on. And of course, might take a week or two before I can do the research for it. But of course, we love to do that. And Adam loves a good story. Send them some that guy, that girl from that show, because you've only done that girl so far.
I know, but I've done like 3 that guys. I was almost at another that guy this week because of the unfortunate passing of Willie Garson, who was in Sex and the City and Leverage, and there's another one of those guys where you immediately recognize it. You're like, where do I know that guy from? Another individual who evidently had been suffering with an illness for a long time and not really let anybody know, and because when he passed, like everybody was posting about like how he'd been going through stuff and that he was so strong, and the audience, the regular people are like, what? Like, we didn't know. Yeah. But understandably, each person gets to choose what they want to share. So.
All right. We always appreciate if you head on over to Apple on YouTube. You can subscribe, share. On Spotify, give us a follow, and on iTunes, you can rate us. And of course, those ratings do help. You can also support the podcast by heading over to the website, get yourself some merch. You can buy us a coffee. All of that money is used for promotion, production, and of the show, and coffee, like legit for real coffee. And am I forgetting anything, Adam?
Nah, I would just say feel free to, when you are listening, if you want to click that share button, you can share it on your social media and let your friends. Super easy way to let people know that you're listening to us, and then that would be super appreciated.
Definitely would. All right. Thanks for another episode, Adam.
Thank you, Brooke.